Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Musa Nxumalo. I'm the author of a book called I'm a Cross-Pollinator. And what we're doing here is something we call Cross-Pollination Tuesdays. It's our spring series for 2021. This is something we do every Tuesday. And it will be a total of 12 sessions for this series, which started on the 31st of August and will go on until the 16th of November. We're hoping to connect with pollinators from 10 countries and plus many other pollinators as well. But there's those that are specifically part of the discussion that we want to bring on here, right? I'm excited about the topics that we're going to cover. I'm going to share that with you now, what you should expect for today and everything else that we've got on the agenda. The topic today is Beyond Capitalism. So this is a rethink classroom style. It's an invitation for us to relook the question of capitalism, go beyond what capitalism is, and bring it closer to home where we are, in our home spaces, in our social spaces where we operate, in our work environments, and many other spaces where we make some form of contribution or the other. Our intentions as we hold these sessions are, one, to deepen connections with each other, to shift perspectives where we can, and to champion each other's work, right? So that is, in essence, what the whole idea of cross-pollination is about, right? And so the topic for today is a question. So I'm going to read from the book, I'm a Cross-Pollinator. I'm taking it straight from the book exactly as it is. So I'm going to read from page 316 all the way to 321. And then with that, I'm hoping that we can now then start engaging on the topics that these pages are going to bring to the surface as an invitation to engage. I'm not in any way claiming to be an expert on any of these. All I'm doing is I'm inviting us to cross-pollinate. All right, so yeah, here it is. So this is right at the end. Chapter 15 of this book, I'm a Cross-Pollinator, is called Beyond Capitalism. And the topic that we're going to be looking at, the subtopic is a rethink classroom style. It goes as follows, and I read. So, good morning, everyone. I'm Professor Selbon. I teach economics with a different flavor. You'll pick it up in the title of today's lecture. I understand there are South Africans amongst us today. Welcome. I'm sure you will find your stay here at the University for Peace very fruitful and peaceful. All the stuff you learn in the classrooms and organizations that you'll be visiting will benefit your country. I love South Africa. I was there for the World Cup. The topic for today is a question. Because economic systems do not arise in a vacuum, what are they influenced by? And in turn, how do they influence the larger cultural systems in which they are embedded? Are you ready? According to the PRB's World Population Data Sheet, an annual report that covers progress and challenges in 200 nations around the world, world population is expected to rise from 7.2 billion today to 9.7 billion by 2050. Virtually, all this growth will be concentrated in the world's less developed countries, especially in Africa. So, how will population growth impact humans and the environment? Which prompts me to ask, how are we going to pursue sustainable economic development to meet human needs without sacrificing the environment? While we celebrate all the great strides made by the past 50 years, we should not forget the huge price paid by the environment. Many indicators of the planet's health continue to decline. There's loss of biodiversity, carbon emissions, and the big challenge of climate change. We need a rethink, a paradigm shift. Asia is home to 60% of the world's population. population. China and India account for more than half of Asia's total population. By 2050, while birth rates decline steadily on a global basis, Africa's population will double, rising from 1.1 billion today to well over 2.2 billion. In Latin America and the Caribbean, people will continue leaving the region, mostly for North America and Europe. Immigration will be the highest driver of population growth in the US and Canada. In Europe, where birth rates have plummeted over the last few decades, the population is expected to decrease from 740 to 726 million by 2050. In Australia and New Zealand, the population will increase from 24 to 36 million and 4.3 to 5.5 million respectively. This will be due to both immigration and a growth in birth rates. What do all of this mean to you? What does all of this mean to you? What's your interpretation of what you are hearing here? As you reflect, what are your thoughts? So Nandi's hand shot up while others were still absorbing the predictions that Professor Selbon was talking about. You know, Prof, what you're saying makes me think how things have changed in South Africa. I don't know about the rest of the world, but let's assume similar trends. A simple change of habit, our sugar intake. We are shifting to honey as an alternative source to sugarcane grown in the southern part of our country. A documentary I was watching on the BBC explained that bees are going extinct. Bees are the biggest pollinators. They pollinate 70 of the 100 crops that feed 90% of the world. A world without bees would struggle to sustain the lives of the billions of people. If you think of the fruits and vegetables we eat and the animals that feed from crops, what would be their food source if the bees were gone? The flower meadows where bees thrive are becoming a rare sight. The varroa mite that feasts on the bee blood, climate change, and the use of pesticides all pose a serious threat to the bee population. So a joker at the back of the class making a cheap bid at popularity said, yeah, I was thinking that fewer bees mean fewer bee stings. The class broke into laughter, and after a few more contributions from the class, the professor resumed his lecture, explaining how countries around the world were responding to the rise of China. China has asserted itself significantly over the last 4 decades, both culturally and economically. In 1978, when Deng Xiaoping became chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, China's GDP was about $150 billion in constant US dollars, according to the World Bank. Its economy has been recently growing to an alarming rate of 10 billion plus per annum, $10 billion. That's a constant annual rate of about 10%. Those of us who are of a certain age vividly remember the rise of Japan to world dominance in electronics, machine tools, semiconductors, steel, and chemicals. Most developed economies at the time were consumed by fear. That fear impaired their vision. How many observers could see beyond the rise of Japan and start being innovative? What I want to know is, how are your countries responding to the rise of China? How have Chinese goods and the Chinese culture infiltrated economic spaces in the countries you come from? An African man with a slight American accent spoke up. The rise of China has really messed things up in East Africa. Our governments took on big infrastructure development loans from China. Now they are struggling to pay them back. So China, with its stronger financial muscles, owns and controls assets that should belong to Africans. It's like a second wave of colonization. In hotels these days, it's quite common to find two food serving counters, one for locals and another for the Chinese palate. In some schools, kids now have the option to study Mandarin. Chinese imports are of low quality and they're cheap. It has destroyed our manufacturing capacity in textiles and clothing. Also, several big retailers who can't compete with Chinese pricing have closed down. So a woman sitting next to him who introduced herself as South African, but was not part of this delegation of the Department of Water and Sanitation Group, said, I would like to bring another dimension to this topic. We need to include questions around the real wealth of nations, which is its people and its natural endowments. Take South Africa, for instance, after the Mandela years. Look at the decay and the eating away of the human spirit and soul. We're well endowed with gold, platinum, chrome, coal, and many other minerals. Coal from our mines in Zululand is of very high calorific value with low ash content. Zululand anthracite has a calorific value of well over 25 megajoules per kilogram. This is exported to rich industrial nations all over the world. Yet when you go to where those mines are, you will be greeted by abject poverty in the villages where I grew up, Kwangwabi, Impagama, and Okuko. It's an injustice and a gross violation of human dignity on many levels. So when she got emotional, the professor suggested a short break for the class. So that was a reading from page 316 all the way to page 321, which is the second last page of the book. I'd like to invite comments, engagements in whichever form, so that we can do a double dig on the topics that I've raised, and the main one being Beyond Capitalism. Like I said, this is our second session. It's our first official cross-pollination session in the series. Last week was only an introduction, but for today, I thought we start off the conversation by something that's right at the end of the book. As we go along, as you can see on the screen, we will look at other topics. So now that we've covered Beyond Capitalism, we'll then go to something that you find right at the beginning of the book, which is alienation. We'll look at alienation next week. And then again, we'll continue engaging on this one, and let's see how far that goes. I would like to publish your comments and share them on our social media platforms, because I think that's the only way we all grow and learn and expand our worldview, our understanding of world issues and so on, and when also staying true to the intentions that you hold. Beyond Capitalism was the topic for today. And then I said next week we're going into alienation. Then from there we go to bounce back ability, the sharing of pain, living in two worlds, visual range, leadership dashboard, unstacking the deck, fractured mirrors, contested identities, reflection, deflection, and refraction. Those are all the topics that you'll find in the book. And so this is actually an experience for all of us to get to know the book a little bit and to engage meaningfully on these topics. So I'm excited by all of this, and I look forward to us engaging further. You can grab yourself a copy of the book. It's available on amazon.com, but also you can drop me an email. Sure, you saw the my details there at the beginning when we started. My email address is musa@knowledgeconnections.co.za. musa@knowledgeconnections.co.za. Yeah, let's connect. Let's see how far we can go as we continue cross-pollinating. Thank you so much for attending.